Welcome to Nature Calls, Conversations from the Hudson Valley. Our team's goal is to present science-based information about gardening and all things nature in New York's Hudson Valley. Our hosts are Master Gardener volunteers for the Cornell Cooperative Extension of Columbia and Greene counties, midpoint along the Hudson River Valley. So if you're interested in gardening or nature or just nuggets of information about what's happening outside your door, listen in and enjoy the conversation. Whatever the season, we'll always have something to talk about.
Hi, I'm Tim Kennelty.
And I'm Jean Thomas.
And welcome to Nature Calls, Conversations from the Hudson Valley.
Our guest today is Joe Behn, a wholesale perennial nurseryman from Columbia County. We usually bring Joe in to help us with some vicarious shopping so we can window shop for the coming seasons. Joe, before we start, do you mind filling us in with a little history of how you ended up running Behn's Best Perennials in Malden Bridge, New York?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Hello to all. Raised on a dairy farm. I moved there in 1963. I was just turning 5. So have always had animals, plants in particular. Turns out our family was much better at growing plants and field crops and so forth than livestock. We sold the farm in 69, and my father was always an avid vegetable gardener, constantly growing plants, collecting seed. So it really comes from my dad.
But the switch from vegetables to perennials, how did that happen?
Just a love of gardening in the little town of Malden Bridge. Lots of families with gardens already who are looking for young men and women to weed and haul this, that, and the next thing. So from probably the age of 8 or 9, was always weeding somebody's garden for dimes and quarters, probably in the mid-60s. Just end up constantly kind of immersed in plants all the time.
But it's a wholesale business, and you cater to a lot of designers and landscape architects. And did that just kind of evolve over time?
From going to college, Farmingdale, and then in Cornell, realized that rather than doing a retail garden center kind of thing, wholesale was nice because you were really your number one plants, and then your customers were landscape gardeners. So they're educating me. I'm trying to educate them as well and offer really good hardy plants for our locale.
And do the non-landscape designers put their nose up against the fence and want to come in? I know we do.
Well, wait a minute. Joe has a wagon out front on the road.
That's right.
Yeah, the roadside
wagon.
The roadside plant wagon has been a big success. I think we've been there now 10 or 12 years, something like that. So that usually keeps my neighbors picking plants down there. Master gardeners and so forth, garden clubs, they're all welcome with appointment, of course. Yeah.
But the wagon is pretty famous, right? Because it's kind of pay as you go, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It's a cash drop, and many times now I introduce myself as I own the plant wagon rather than vice versa, and they go, "Oh, yes, I know where that is. My wife goes there. I go there." People travel from all over. Really, it's really. Like within 30 miles, they sniff it out.
And the plant wagon always has these beautifully blooming plants. They always are at their peak. And I think, I want those plants. It's very enticing.
Right.
So you never thought of going retail at all?
Oh, we don't have really the sight for it. And I don't really have the personality for it. I see a lot of cranky retail garden center owners. So with the wholesale, it's kind of nice. We can get the greenhouse going in late February, and then we close it the first couple of days of December. So right now, there's just a big window of downtime where you can actually kind of retank and think a little bit and actually get enthused again about gardening rather than feeling like you've been run over 1,000 times.
So you take a break in the winter.
Oh, yeah. I still do plants every day. Now it's ordering, it's pots, it's plants. So there's always things to do, but I can do it in my pajamas. That's always a good thing. Me and the dogs.
Always a very good thing, yeah. So the dogs are the best. The dogs are the enticing part of going to Joe's place, right? You do overwinter some of them, right?
Oh, yes, yeah. Right now we're sitting on 24,000
Oh my
pots.
God.
Yeah. So that's the necessity of it, that you really have to open with mature plants. Of course, we make plants every day as we progress through the year.
But you don't have a greenhouse. How do you overwinter those plants? I always
everything's outside.
And
Outside frozen. They're all covered,
okay.
consolidated.
So gallon plants then they freeze solid?
You betcha.
Wow.
Yep, that's the key. Just like, your garden.
Right.
Right now it's frozen solid. So really no difference. Where you get into trouble is when you have these really soft winters and things thaw out and then refreeze and thaw out. So, but we've got a good overwintering system that kind of mitigates that.
See, and I'm sorry, I'm going to keep asking questions about this because it's fascinating to me to think about overwintering. What's the hardest thing in terms of losing plants over the winter?
Usually it's the rodents.
So
Moles, the voles, and the bill mice, yeah.
And so they just kind of burrow into those.
Yeah, they're active all year, which is kind of amazing. Yeah, they need to feed, and so you just kind of have to live with that. There's
Well, just like deer, we're going to talk to you a little bit about deer resistant areas, right, today, because this is one of the things we've had you on the podcast a bunch of times, and we were talking about deer resistant or deer enclosures that keep out the deer.
Right, deer enclosures, yeah, over and over and over again. That's kind of the number one question is, what don't the deer eat?
I assume you get that question all the time.
All the time. Usually my customers know better than I do. We're fenced off. We've got 3 acres and it's completely fenced with deer fence. I know what they kind of eat at my house, but it's really kind of a minimal sample set.
What's your kind of top line for what they don't eat? Not particular plants, but kinds of plants.
I think it's still 3 things. It's ferns, ornamental grasses, silver foliage plants. So it kind of really limits you. Those are kind of the solid, rock solid ones. Of course, there's others. When they're hungry, they're going to eat.
I mean, we were just talking before we came on about I had deer eating dead Monarda stems, but usually mint plants are in the mint family. They stay away from. Yes.
I would think, yeah. The door is wide open now. So many times it's the little ones as well as the adults. The little ones are basically testing everything.
I had a fawn taste test of cucumber, and you know how they're all prickly, the leaves and stuff. So he came along. There was a leaf coming out from the fence. He came along and he said, "Oh, that looks good and green." He took a bite out of it and he jumped and he spit it out. Didn't like it.
And they do test. I think you're right. That the smaller ones, I mean, the more mature deer seem to kind of know what they like and what they don't like.
And it's the little ones. And the little ones too have a tendency to really be able to sneak under fences and so forth.
One of the things you wanted to talk about were these kind of rooms that people are building, kind of small rooms that are somewhat deer resistant.
Yeah, it's really kind of an old concept. The idea of paradise was always a 4-walled garden space. So for us, it's kind of the same thing. Many different ways to do it, but really it needs to be completely deer-proof.
Is there a height that usually, or is it so small that they wouldn't jump it because they can't get clearance?
It doubles as a privacy kind of situation. So I would think something above 6 feet. And whether you have hedging on the inside or outside, I'm a big fan of 2-sided fence. Both sides of the fence should be ornamental. The idea that you always have one side that's kind of not so attractive and that has to face you seems rather silly. Yeah.
So the outside of the fence would be planted with your concept. It would be planted with perennials or with
whatever you like. So the outside of the fence, of course, is going to have to be deer-proof. Privets, I think, work really well. The European beech. My favorite, personally, is the hop hornbeam. Deciduous. Deer don't eat it. Yeah, just a beautiful, beautiful hedge. And the hop hornbeams and perhaps the European beech, you probably don't even need a fence, or you do get by with something that's really kind of see-through. There's a product that the farmers use. It's called pig wire, which is, if you use it as a fence, would be very, very easily disguised.
So, because that becomes invisible when you've got the hedging. Yeah. And those are both gorgeous plants.
Yeah, right.
Real personality.
And the fourth one that pops up now is an Amir maple, which I'm not even quite sure what that is, but apparently you can really hedge it into something nice and dense.
I've seen them; they're nice, but
it's almost like a topiary kind of thing, or
no, it's like a dwarf maple. But they apparently are very successful, and they're on the verge of becoming invasive.
I mean, privets, I would say too, you have to be a little bit careful with, because I don't know if they're on the list for New York, but they're considered in some states invasive. So all those things that you're talking about, I think for a reason are deer resistant, because some of the invasive plants are deer resistant, right?
And those 4 are all deciduous.
Right.
Oh, right. So you've still got it, and they've got really good winter interest because
Yeah.
the trunks and stems and branches
You figure
are
out
just
like hop
gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah, the hopcorn beam and the beech and the bark is interesting
Exactly
on them
right.
as well.
Yep.
Yeah, so you can do it without because when we were getting ready for this show, I'm saying, "Geez, fencing costs a ton. So how can we do that on I mean, in a small area, of course, it's feasible."
And hedging is expensive also.
Yeah.
I found a place out in Oregon called InstaHedge.
Okay.
That's a pretty cool thing. They ship it, whatever you like, a tractor trailer. And
It's a shrub, or it's how it.
many shrubs.
Like this there's cat.
Yeah. The
InstaHedge. I like that name.
InstaHedge, and they're already very close to come in like a 4-foot box,
Oh, okay.
and they're already.
So you just plant the whole box?
You take them out of the
You take them out individually.
box or a bag. I think
They're bare root.
No, they're definitely in soil. So they're field grown, harvested into these boxes, and then shipped. And I think it's probably the most economic way.
But there's actually a fence here. There's a physical fence, so whether it's wooden or whatever. But then you're putting a hedge outside the fence, is what you're talking about.
Sure. Yeah. Exactly.
Here's the good news. I don't see any invasives on this list.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. Good.
I mean, you do have to be careful with some of those things, but like it's a really interesting concept, I think. So you'd have several of these, or I mean, it's something to sit out in.
Exactly right. Yep. Usually, just right adjacent to the house. You walk from the house out.
Almost like a kitchen garden, but
Right.
yeah.
Exactly. Only now it's more fortified. Maybe small flowering trees to give you kind of the sense of a ceiling. Of course, seating, water features are always nice. And then that's where you put all of your plants that the deer just love to eat.
So
Tulips,
I'm walking
azaleas.
with Bane's Perennials.
Oh, I can do
And
tulip.
what else would I buy that the deer love to eat? Like, what are you finding that they love to eat that people love to have, but I'm thinking of phlox, for instance. It's what.
There you go. Right.
Yeah.
Hostas.
Yeah, hostas.
Yep.
So you have your non-deer resistant garden, then, is what you do within the fenced-in area.
Yeah, that's
So
where you
just
put
kind of
the
Daylilies.
You have to kind of turn your head upside down because you're always thinking about things that deer don't eat. You think about things that you want to have that they're
And what they didn't eat, last year, now they're after.
and the lucky ones that get over the fence get the carnival of food, right?
Yeah, there's no getting over the fence. That's the number one.
And do you have designers that you work with? Or plan people that you work with, professionals who are building these now in the area?
Oh, sure, yeah. The cities, basically it's kind of a concept that's always happened because you're kind of surrounded by. It's more of a courtyard
Right.
idea. You've got a lot of buildings already, but it's the countryside that you really need to have this kind of fortress just to protect.
Yeah, because you expect to have to do this in urban and suburban, but actually, I've got 3 acres, and I put up a pergola, so that would be my
There you go.
Right.
equivalent.
Yep.
Not that they don't come dancing in the pergola when I'm not looking, but I haven't put enough fencing there yet.
Right. It just needs to be walled off
Yeah.
somehow.
But it's true.
But,
You want to take a couple of rooms when you're living in the country instead of that vast lawn. That actually makes no sense.
Yeah.
Exactly, right.
Yeah. And we're seeing more of it.
And of course, it's perfect for entertaining and just solitude. The water features, I think, are really a great addition.
So if I wanted to do this, would I talk to I couldn't figure out how to do this. I don't think.
I think it's really a simple concept.
Yeah.
Ask Joe.
Yep.
But I assume there are designers you could go to and they'd understand the concept and say like, oh, I can build that for you. What do you want? Right.
Right. Yeah. You as the homeowner have to know what you like and what you don't like, and
And what the deer eat.
and of course now with the internet you can see so many different pictures of certain things here and there, how to construct fences. I think one of the keys too is to limit the number of gates. The more gates, the odds of one of them being left open.
Yeah.
Is always the thing. It's a human error. Somebody goes out, doesn't close completely, and now you have a problem
Right.
the next morning.
And then what
whatever.
are in there? If they're in there, right?
Oh yeah. And along the way, it's still woodchucks. It's still rabbits. So
Well,
that's,
they'll in under a gate.
yep, that's where the fencing. You
And
really have to.
would it keep woodchucks out? Do you think? Because it could probably dig under,
Oh sure, if they really really wanted to.
and they'll eat anything pretty much.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, sure.
They climb too.
They do. Yeah, they're good climbers, which is amazing. It's got to be quite a sight.
Do we want to talk about what plants you're excited about coming up in this season? Or are there new plants that you're looking at? Are there plants you're getting rid of? They're out of fashion, or they're
Yeah, there's
they're being eaten by the deer, and people just don't want them anymore. kind of how do you do that? How do you rotate in and out?
Yeah, it's one of those situations where, like garden phlox, I think the summer garden phlox is a good example. So we used to grow 6 or 7 types. Now we're down to 3.
Really? I mean, they're beautiful and sometimes they smell nice, but they are really deer candy.
Great cut flower, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they're
Tell us more
Look
of the stuff that's going out of fashion.
going out of fashion.
Out of fashion.
Yeah,
What did everybody
so
have
much.
to have?
Because you probably know cutting edge who's asking for what, right? I mean, I know I've come and begged you to plant things, but and you've had some unusual things like that. I can't even remember the name of it. That was kind of a yellow aster that was one of my favorite things that I had never.
Yeah, the
even
golden
seen.
aster, and that one is actually deer proof.
Yeah, yeah.
I have a couple of them that have seeded out into my field, and they're left completely alone. The New York ironweed is really good. That's very popular.
Right.
There's some ones now that top out at 3 or 4 feet rather than the 7 to 8 foot type, and the deer don't seem to bother those. So there's a lot of stuff, and there's always new plants. The conveyor belt of new
Right.
offerings is pretty astounding. So we try not to get too
And
tempted.
Doesn't a lot of that last a couple of seasons and then just disappear?
Sometimes,
Okay.
yeah, you have to be really kind of careful. Just a little bit of research, you'll find out if something's like zone 7. The agastache have been really, really popular, all those colored agastache, and these just don't live here. They're kind of in a high altitude, zone 6, zone 7 plant.
And the base agastache are immortal.
Yep.
Just stick to the basics and say
Exactly, right. Yep, the rugosa
Yep.
agastache,
Yeah.
Blue Fortune is the variety mostly grown. And so that one's rock solid, but all those other colored ones, they're really just annuals, which is fine.
Yeah.
But you have to understand
As
that
long as you understand, right?
the odds of it coming back are very, very, very slim.
I'm just thinking about the ironweed that you were talking about. That could be excellent plant to be an outside plant
Sure.
for your garden room, right? Because I mean, I remember I was at somebody's house last year looking, and they were looking to kind of fence off an area, not really fence, but put plants in an area that kind of would make kind of a shrub area, but they didn't really want to have shrubs.
As a privacy.
Yeah, and we were talking about that plant, but I think that's probably one that is fairly deer resistant that would work.
Yeah, and being on the outside, it probably would peek up over a fence
Yeah.
at 6 feet.
And they do get to be extra. I mean, I have some that are 10 feet tall.
They're very tough. Yep.
Yeah.
They need to stay wet if possible. So if you have an August drought or somewhere, just soak them really good a couple of times extra.
And once they're established,
Rock solid. Yeah.
yeah.
And again, self-seeding. I love to have free plants, and I know Joe probably doesn't want to hear this.
Oh no.
Joe doesn't care.
But yeah, I mean, they self-seed and have little plantlets, and if you dig them up and you dig them up soon enough, because they have a very
Right.
intense root system,
Yeah.
you have a lot of new
Sure,
plants.
Okay, rule of thumb. Now tell me if I'm correct. We were talking about the agastache and the fancy colors just are annuals, like you say, and realistically. Is that kind of a good rule of thumb for everything? I mean, if something usually comes in a certain color and it has for millennia, and all of a sudden you have a rainbow of them popping up that the breeders have created, you want to consider those as annuals, like what they've been doing with the
Echinacea?
Echinacea is basically a kind of a short-term party perennial.
Right.
Even out in the native, short-lived, I should say. But many of them will live 3, 4, 5 years without any trouble. And I'm sure if you lifted them come springtime, just gave them, just kind of took them apart a little bit and replanted them, reset them, they'll be fine. But yeah, the echinaceas there's hundreds of them now, so it's
you still
a little buyer beware. But
yeah, you kind of end up treating them like an annual anyway. Then
It just seems like the more kind of variation there is, the more they breed out the hardiness. I mean, I don't know if that's true or not, but the fancier you get. I mean, I will say that you have one that I bought, Aloha, which is beautiful, and it's pretty hardy. It's
yeah, we've had a good luck with
golden
that.
yellow. But it's beautiful, and it does seem to come back for me year after year. So it's the exception to the rule, I guess.
Sure, yeah.
are there other ways to make a fence tolerable? Like if you've got a fence, most fences are pretty much ugly, or they're architectural and cost a fortune. So the first thing you suggested was putting a hedge on the outside. Are there fences you can put up and then maybe retrofit, like espalier?
Anything goes really. A good carpenter will build you a good fence.
Okay.
And they're going to come with ideas. I tend to go with vertical fencing, and then where the gate is,
Yep.
the gate would then be horizontal because you can see it a lot better. It just kind of stands out. And with the gates, they want to be wide enough so you can get a nice cart through, but nothing too crazy. Yeah, it's really what you like. It's just like, building your home. You have a design and the things you like. You know what you like when you see it.
Well, you were talking to us about a Fine Gardening magazine has an article, January, February, I think it was, and they were showing some fences that would fit into this concept of the garden room, and some of them are gorgeous. And
Oh yeah, it better be. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, why would you want to sit in a place with an ugly fence? So that.
And I don't know if it was that month or the month prior, but they were suggesting retrofits. Like, I've got a big honking deer fence. It's ugly, but it's also invisible. People driving by aren't going to see it.
Sure.
So all they see is the posts. So I'm putting bird feeders on the top of a lot of my posts.
There you go.
Because every post in the spring has a bird sitting on it, hunting.
Yes.
And making woo and all kinds of stuff. But they're very busy. So there's so many different ways you can accent the fence and make it less obtrusive. So maybe that's something that people could consider.
Well, I think it's just as creative as you can be, honestly, whether it's plants or it's putting bird feeders on or making it more functional and more attractive, right?
Yeah. What's your favorite fence, Joe?
Oh, my favorite fence. Oh, jeez.
If you were putting up a pretty fence, what would you do?
It would be wooden, more likely. Maybe a hemlock, something that's really going to give you some long life.
Mhm. And
20,
if it's
20, 30 years kind of a thing.
that sounds
And
good.
yeah, and ornamental from both sides.
And I'm looking at some that are like split rail, which say, oh crap, that's not going to work. But if you've got split rail backed with one of these deer fences or something, you don't see the
Exactly. You see the split rail, certainly
So rethinking it.
more so.
I always think
And
of
then the deer fence is going to be the metal
yeah.
pig wire or reinforced.
But you won't see that.
Probably not. Yes.
I'm just thinking one of the things that you want to consider if you want to attract butterflies too is you want to have, if you have flowers that are pollinator flowers friendly within the fence, and then you plant host trees outside the fence. I mean, if you really can get into that and kind of research what the host plants are, then the butterfly doesn't have to fly that far from nectar to laying their eggs. It's like one of those things that I always think about when I have a little fenced in area, and it's like I have native trees outside it, and I think they're probably laying their eggs and then going and nectaring in the garden. So I think there's all kinds of ways you can make it more functional for if you really want to attract wildlife too.
It's about plant diversity.
Yeah.
Different flower shapes.
Yeah. And if you decide, all right, this spring I'm going to put a garden room.
Mhm.
I want to use plants I already have, but I'm also a shopaholic like Tim, and I want to add new stuff.
Hey.
Is that a good time? If you just decide to do it in the spring, you just turn all your soil, you move the stuff you want, and then you go shopping to fill in the gaps.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's practical.
You probably want to start with the enclosure.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Because
When people want to have a new vegetable garden and so forth, it's like, okay, well, start with the fence, start with the site. Let's fence it in, and then let's worry about soils and plants and so forth, and beds and bed layout and all that. But yeah, you need to protect it first.
Yeah, you don't want to be stomping on everything while you're putting the fence in afterwards.
Yeah.
That's so mature.
Kind of need to think it through, which is like what we don't do, right? I mean, we're impatient. I think I can speak for both of us. And, when I think about like making a garden and getting rid of turf and putting it down, it's probably good for a couple of seasons like this. You probably want to kind of take a look at it and see how it works over a season. I couldn't do that because I'm impatient. But that's probably the best way to do it. You really want to make something and have it look good for years. I think you probably want to make sure that it sits in the landscape and makes sense.
Bingo. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, turf inside, lawn inside of it is just a pain in the toe.
Right. Yeah.
That's
yeah. You want to probably have.
There's enough lawn already. You should just be
beds and
walkways,
like gravel walkways or something like
sure.
that. Yeah.
Yep.
More hardscaping.
Yeah, exactly. Would that be like whether it's brick or paving or gravel, a little wooden lifted area for seating.
That is wise. Otherwise, you're out in your little tiny cute garden with your scissors trimming the grass.
Oh yeah, the grass is like
Ooh.
No,
there's way too much grass already.
We want to get
It
rid.
should be garden beds, and walkways and seating.
Okay. Well, there we go.
Water features. Then there's lighting, of course, and you can use overhead fabric to give you a more enclosed kind of fence. There's all kinds of different ways to make.
I'm kind of ready to make one, aren't you?
I've got mine designed halfway already on my notes here.
I'm going to come over to your house and see you like using scissors to cut lawn. That's what I want to
You
see.
ain't going to see that. Okay.
No, but this is inspiring to me. I hope it is to everybody else. It's for something new to do. Is there something you're really excited about that, like, if I came this spring to your nursery, that you would say to me, Tim, you really have to have this plant? You never said that. I always just say, like, leave me alone. I want to buy all the plants.
Exactly. Just let people go, and you pick stuff as like, oh, I've never picked that, but they did. That's good.
He always says that.
And I grow it already, so it must be something I like somehow. With these outdoor garden rooms, you can have a fire pit. You can have a place for your dogs to run free. And there's always songbirds. You talked about beneficial insects and butterflies.
Oh, the deer can't get at your bird feeders in there.
Or bird baths, too. I mean, bird bath would want. Or somebody else said water feature, which is going to be really good for birds as well. And I thought if you're thinking dogs, for my dogs, you'd have to have an intensely wired fence or something that they just, I mean, if you're thinking about you have to probably think about all those different things that you want for the
Exactly. It's
function.
all about what your lifestyle is and how it needs to all fit. But, and one room, of course, can lead to another. You can have just like a cottage garden or a
kitchen garden together.
Vegetable gardens, and just kind of have them connected so you can move from one space to the next. And obviously, vegetable garden has to be really sunny.
Right.
And then for seating and entertaining, it's nice to be in the shade. And
it sounds like a lot of planning to me. And
that's for the
a lot of thinking. Thinking.
Yep. Thinking.
That's good. This is a good warning for people like me and Tim.
That's right.
You better think ahead.
Okay. It sounds good.
Now, are we done?
Yeah, I think so. How are we going to wrap this up?
We're going to say thank you, Joe.
We are?
Yes.
You're very welcome.
No, thank you for coming. It's always a pleasure talking to you, even though you wouldn't tell us what you're excited about for this year for the plants.
My head isn't there yet. It's just one of those things. It doesn't really happen until like April when you feel like, oh, yeah, this. Because I kind of purposely forget and delete a whole bunch of.
We'll come back in April then.
Yeah.
I do that with my catalogs. I write my order, then I put it away for 3 weeks.
Oh, good. Yeah.
And then I go back and thin it.
And then you order. I think you're wrapping up. That's how we'll do it.
We're not good at wrapping this up.
Anyway, we love having you here, and we're excited about coming to your nursery and buying plants this year.
That's great. Good to be back in the Cornell Co-op Extension.
Yes.
Oh, we're really happy to have you back. You're welcome anytime.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, we're done.
Thanks, and thanks to our listeners.
Thank you, Joe.
That concludes another episode of Nature Calls, Conversations from the Hudson Valley. We would like to thank Xandra Powers and Devin Connolly from the Cornell Cooperative Extension of Columbia and Greene Counties for production support. And a special thanks to our listeners for joining us on this episode of Nature Calls, Conversations from the Hudson Valley. You can find links to any of the topics mentioned in this episode at our website at ccecolumbiagreen.org. Comments and suggestions for future topics may be directed to us at columbiagreenmgv@cornell.edu or on the CCE Master Gardener Volunteers of Columbia and Greene Facebook page. For more information about CCE of Columbia and Greene, visit our website or visit in person during business hours at our campuses in Hudson or Acra. Cornell Cooperative Extension provides equal programming and educational opportunities.